Welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. Over this winter I've talked a lot about rain, and we've had quite a lot. We've had probably even since just after summer finished more rain than we've had in a number of years. And I thought it was wet, but after this week, wow, we really are wet now. At the start of the week, it rained heavily for probably 3 days, and everything flooded. All of our paddocks flooded, the creek burst its bank, and it was so wet you just could not get outside or even really step outside the front door without the ground being so wet that your foot was just getting stuck in mud. The creek was flowing so fast, we were actually really worried that our new little pedestrian bridge was going to get washed away. We had a check on it and it seems to have survived, which is quite lucky. It was actually floating, it had come up, but because of the star pickets that we'd put in, it was still being held in place. Because this creek runs into the Yarra River, it does flow fairly quickly and go down almost as quickly as it comes up. So it's now back down to being normal levels, and our little bridge is still standing strong. Then after having days of just wet weather, we had incredible gale force winds yesterday. So strong, howling winds all day. We kept thinking that trees were going to go over or that our power was going to go off. Throughout the day we were quite lucky, the power didn't go out. But about 7 o'clock last night, we lost power just as we were about to cook dinner. So change of plans, and dinner ended up being on the barbecue by torchlight. Lucky for us, our power came on really quickly, but a lot of other places around here are still without power, so like 12, 14 hours after it went out. So we're normally the ones that get the power returned last, but for some reason this time around we were the first, which was lucky for us, I guess. We haven't done a boundary run yet to double check any fallen trees or anything on fences, but we do know that the electric fence is working, because from our lounge we have a little light that is connected to the fence, and when the fence is operating it will flash so you can see that it is connected and working. That doesn't mean that there are not branches down over parts of the fence, it just means that the current through the electric fence is still flowing. So we will need to do a check just to make sure that everything is still in order, and just to clear up any rubbish that has been caused by these really bad windstorms. So no real other outside jobs this week, but what we did do was to start the flooring for the mezzanine in the shed. So at my end of the shed, we decided that rather than have it high bay all the way through, we would add a mezzanine level. So it is high bay at the farm end, so we can put higher machinery and things inside if we need to. And at this end of the shed, we'll have a storage mezzanine. So the framework was in, but we had to do the flooring ourselves. So we've got tongue and groove panels, and the hardest part was actually getting them up there. They're quite large and heavy. They fit the whole expanse of the middle section of the shed. So we had to lift them up one by one. Once they were up there, getting them in, placing the tongue and groove together and then drilling them down was not so bad. It's almost finished. Just got a bit more to drill in, and it will become a storage area. And it's also created a lower roof across all of my end of the shed. So sort of the roof becomes the same across the 3 bays that I use, rather than having the high section through in the middle. Next will be to get stairs done. We're getting some professional quotes on those at the moment. We're not going to try and attempt stairs ourselves. So at the moment it is just an area that is ready to go, but we're not able to put anything up there until we can access it properly with stairs. Last week I showed some dyeing in progress, and then I was leaving those to dry this week. They've taken a little bit longer to dry because of all of the wet and cloudy weather we've been having. I do have a really good spot where I can pop my drying rack in the sun, and also it can get a really good draft between the two sliding doors. So on nice days it dries really quickly, but just not this week. So I've spent this week starting to break up my skeins into mini skeins because I have a plan of what I'm going to do for some new packs of minis. This is one of the colours. This is Flowering Gum. That's it in the full skein. And then this is one of the skeins broken down into mini skeins. I've got a few more colours to dye up, and I need to figure out some of the technical things for my shop. But once all of that's done, hopefully by the end of next week, then I'll be able to share with you my new mini skein packs. Now on mini skeins, dyers do them in a couple of different ways. Lots of dyers these days actually buy undyed yarn in small 20 gram skeins already, and then they dye them from there. What I do is dye a full skein of the yarn so that the colorway recipe is the same, and then I wind one of these into a ball and then use scales and a skein winder and wind them off into 20 gram lots. So I get 5 mini skeins from one big skein. Now the reason I do this rather than just dye minis straight up is because if you buy this mini skein and you knit it or crochet it, it will end up knitting or crocheting up the same way as a full skein would. Whereas if I did this colorway on a mini skein, the way that the ratios of the light and dark portions and the way that the color falls within the skein would be different. Because I use resist, I twist it and knot it and do a few different things, the way that that comes out on a large skein compared to on a small skein can vary quite a lot. And so you end up actually getting a different colorway by doing it in small batches or doing it in large batches. So that's why it takes a little bit of extra work the way I do it, because I do have to spend some time actually skeining and reskeining and working with each of the little skeins before they're ready. But I think in the end, for me, it's worthwhile because I want my colours to be as consistent as I can across the different sizes, and I think it gives a truer representation of the colourway. So that if someone wants to work with a small skein to get an idea of what it might look like, get a little bit of a taster, then they might come back and buy a full one, and they'll actually be getting the same result as they would have done from the small one as well. I showed you the very beginnings of my dad's socks last week, and I've made some unbelievable progress. Those rainy days have certainly helped. So I've just finished doing the heels on both. There they are. And I'm really happy with how they're coming out. One thing, I did run out of the dark blue on the second heel. So what I did is I added in a little bit of this light blue, which is the same yarn. It's the Ziliana Cozy that I used for the toes and the heels, but just in a different color. And it's just a few rows there before I started back into the foot. It's on the back of the heel, probably going to be in a shoe most of the time, and it feels the same. So slightly patchwork socks, but I think that will be okay. So if the weather is anything like it was this week, I should make significant progress on the legs this week, potentially get them done. So we'll see how we go. I did very briefly pick up my granny stripe blanket yesterday and did maybe 2 rows. So no progress to really show you there. It's been all about the socks, which I am really enjoying. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.